Hey there, friends. Welcome to the channel where history comes alive and the steel of the past tells incredible dramas. Today, the story of a defeat. The story of a tank that could have become a legend but remained in the shadows. A tale of stubbornness, miscalculations, and the relentless tide of war that broke the fate of one of the most famous machines of the Second World War. We're talking about the Panzer III, the Troika. This isn't a dry textbook report. It's a saga of engineering ambition colliding with harsh reality, from beginning to end. Before you hit like and write waiting for the sequel, in the comments, close your eyes and imagine. The rumble of engines, the smell of diesel and metal, and this steel behemoth rolling out of the factory into its final, most crucial battle. Let's go. You know what's most ironic about war? Often, the winner isn't the most brilliant or technological, but the one made on time, in large numbers, and in the right place. The Panzer III is the complete opposite of this thesis. Its history is a continuous series of almost, if only, and how did that happen? From its very birth, it was a headache. Not a beautiful, promising project, but a real headache for those who created it. Picture the engineers at Daimler-Benz in the mid-30s. They received a top-down order: create a medium tank, the backbone of the future armored divisions of the Wehrmacht. It was exhilarating, a chance to make history, but the euphoria faded quickly. For pre-production modifications. You hear that? They were like mutants born with different running gear, sometimes with 8 road wheels, sometimes with 6, trying different types of suspension. This wasn't a quest for perfection. It was desperation. They couldn't find a reliable configuration. And the gearbox? The legendary Variarex. On paper, an engineering marvel, semi-automatic, making the driver's life easier. In practice, a repairman's nightmare, finicky and unreliable. Road wheels that cracked and failed under load. Production plan delays out of nowhere. I'm going to say something heretical now, but the Panzer III never truly became a successful machine. It became a workhorse, a patient soldier who bore the brunt of the first blitzkriegs. Poland, France, the Balkans, there it was king. But that success was deceptive. It wasn't due to its outstanding qualities, but to competent tactics and enemy weakness. And then came 1941, Operation Barbarossa, and here our Troika in the OSV version, having seemingly reached the peak of its evolution, met the cold truth of the Russian steppes. And that truth had sloped armor plates, wide tracks, and a long 76mm gun. Its name was the T-34, and what happened can be described in one word: shock. The Troika's gun, the 50mm KWK-38 with a barrel length of 42 calibers, was like pepper spray against a bear. On paper, it looked decent, about 40mm of armor at a range of 500 meters. But that was against vertical armor. The T-34's armor was sloped at a cunning 60-degree angle, sharply increasing its effective thickness. The shell just ricocheted or failed to penetrate. And in response came a Soviet shell that could pierce the Troika at almost any reasonable combat range. This is where the most dramatic turn in our story begins. And it's connected to a man who, it seems to me, was obsessed with the idea of a technical marvel. Adolf Hitler. The initiative to urgently upgrade the Panzer III's armament came directly from him, the Führer. It's an amazing irony of fate. Professional engineers, people like Ferdinand Porsche or Armaments Minister Fritz Todt, looked at the Troika's chassis and threw up their hands. They saw the limit. They saw that the platform, originally designed for 15 to 17 tons, had already ballooned to 21.5. They saw the cramped layout, the exhausted reserves. They were against it. They said, "Mein Führer, this is a dead end. We need a new machine." And Hitler? He thought differently. He wanted results here and now. The war in the East was raging. Tanks were burning. The front demanded more powerful weapons. Waiting for a new design, years. Upgrading an existing one, months. And in this dictator's arithmetic, there was a cruel logic. So imagine, against the entire technical establishment. For one man, but one with absolute power. Who would win? The answer is obvious. And someone was found who decided to gain political points and a contract. The firm Rheinmetall Borsig. They already had developments for a lengthened 50mm gun, called the KWK-39 with a 60 caliber barrel. It was decided to shove this into the good old Troika. But this, my friends, was not a triumph of engineering. It was a temporary measure, a crutch meant to hold on until the arrival of the magical OSV. K with a Panzer IV turret and a powerful 75mm gun. A dream, but, as often happens, the temporary became permanent. And you know why? Because installing this seemingly simple, longer gun turned into engineering hell. This isn't like inserting a new camera module into a phone. This was surgery on a living tank. Imagine, the new gun means new, larger rounds. The cartridge case became longer by a whole 133mm. In the cramped turret, where there was already no room to swing a cat among the 4 crew members, they had to completely redesign the space. The vertical, 2-tier shell racks had to be thrown out. Single-tier ones were crammed in instead. The result? Ammunition capacity dropped from 99 rounds to 84. And most importantly, only 34 of them were armor-piercing. The rest were high-explosive. What does this mean in practice? It means our tank destroyer could only actively duel for a few minutes before turning into an expensive infantry support vehicle. The mass inside the TUD redistributed. Everything had to be changed. Seats, controls, sights. The crew, already working under stress, now had to adapt to a new, even more cramped reality. But that's not all. Physics is a harsh and unforgiving lady. By extending the barrel 67 centimeters forward beyond the hull's dimensions, the engineers significantly shifted the tank's entire center of gravity. Imagine holding a hammer by the very end of the handle. It's hard to control. The same thing happened to the tank. All this mass now bore down on the front road wheels and the suspension, which was already operating at its limit. It's like loading another sack onto an old, battered cart. It might move, but it'll creak for all to hear, and the axle might crack at any moment. And here we come to the main paradox. The attempt to create a radical modification, the very OSV, K with the 75mm gun, failed. In the spring of '42, the project was cancelled. Why? Because the Panzer III's chassis simply couldn't handle it. To withstand the weight of the new turret and powerful gun, everything needed strengthening. The suspension, transmission, road wheels, maybe even reworking the hull. And that meant stopping the assembly lines. And the war? The war doesn't wait. Tanks are burning at the front. They need to be replaced. Not with new, promising ones, but with something. And German industry, often portrayed as a model of efficiency, hit its organizational limits. Reconfiguring production under total war proved an impossible task. Thus, the Troika became a closed platform, an evolutionary dead end. Now, let's look at its eternal competitor, the Panzer IV. Initially conceived as an infantry support tank with a short-barreled gun. But its chassis turned out to be surprisingly resilient, capacious. Could be stretched, strengthened, upgraded. It went from a support vehicle to the main German tank of the mid-war period. And therein lies all the tragedy of the Panzer III. It lost its war not on the battlefields of Kursk or Stalingrad. It lost it on the drawing boards and in the factory workshops, back in the late 30s, when its potential was artificially limited by the initial calculations. And even when the decision to switch to the long gun was made at the very top in December '41, industry sabotaged it in its own bureaucratic way. That very December, 171 Panzer III OSV J were produced, and only 40 of them received the new gun. The rest, the old, weak one. Why? Stockpiles. Old components needed to be used up. The rhythm couldn't be disrupted. The front was screaming for help, but logistics and planning dictated their terms. Until April '42, both old and new machines were sent to the front, creating confusion in ammunition supply and repair. The tactical payoff from all this fuss turned out to be mediocre. Yes, the new gun penetrated more, but the T-34 still remained a tough nut for the Troika to crack. In a duel on equal terms, the Soviet tank had better odds. And it's not just about the gun. Look at the tables I'm mentally laying out before you now. The Troika's power-to-weight ratio is about 14 horsepower per ton. The T-34's is close to 19. It was nimbler, more mobile. The Germans' operational range is 155 kilometers on the highway. The Russians is 300. That's twice as much. Imagine the operational freedom that provided. And production? We produced about 1,500 Panzer III J. And the Soviet T-34s, just the models from 41 to 42, they made more than 10,600. 10,000. That's not a competition. That's a beating. So it turns out that the Panzer III J and L with its long 50mm gun is a swan song. Beautiful, sad, but belated. It was a gesture of desperation from a system that realized it had fallen behind and was trying frantically to catch up with complex, expensive, and not fully effective modifications. It was a post-factum tank that stepped onto the dueling ground after the rules had already changed. What do we take from this story? Technical perfection in isolation from strategy, logistics, and mass production is nothing. Stubbornness, even backed by power, cannot override the laws of physics and economics. And most importantly, war is won not by the one with a wonder weapon, but by the one whose weapon is reliable, producible, and plentiful. The Panzer III was complex, finicky, there were few of them, and it was too late. And that is its entire defeat. Friends, this wasn't just a story about a tank. It's a story about choices, the cost of error, and the relentless march of history. If this gripped you, if you want other such dramas to come alive on this channel, your action is simple and important. Hit subscribe right now so you don't miss new stories. And write in the comments what other loser or, conversely, unexpected winner of the war do you want to hear about next? What technical drama interests you? Your opinion shapes this channel. Let's discuss. And I'll say goodbye for now. Remember, history isn't just dates and iron. It's destinies. Until next time on the air.